happen with it.
Right, exactly. You are funding the plan if you're funding Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
And people, I think people are a little bit asleep at the switch here.
Right.
They're not understanding this, and like Troy was alluding to. I still say this thing is going to go through. If it does, it'll go through because the Republicans roll over on their back and whimper out and say, "Oh, please, please don't hurt me, Mr. Democrat," and that's what's going to happen. But even the ones that might fight will then say, "Okay, we'll compromise on this and this and this," and every compromise you give them is going to include abortion. What these Republicans need to be doing is saying, "Okay, look, if you want to compromise on this bill, here's the compromise we want. We'll talk about the health care provision for people that don't have insurance. You agree to the provision in here by statute, not by that can be undone administratively, that says federal dollars can never be used to pay for elective abortion. They're not going to pay for breast augmentations or,
nose job,
liposuction or anything like that, which are purely elective, done for non-medical reasons on perfectly healthy people. They're not going to do that anywhere else. This is the one they're going to carve out an exception for.
Well, here's the exception. Abortion is not health care.
Right, exactly.
Abortion is not health care. We need to be screaming that from the mountaintops.
And don't forget the reproductive rights, bull,
That's
that
just a
abortion
euphemism for
kills
baby
that
killing.
that has already been reproduced.
Remember what Ronald Reagan said? I love going back to some of his speeches. He said some of the scariest words in the English language are, "I'm with the government and I'm here to help." I'm with the government, I'm here to help, pardon me. And now we're turning to the government for all of our health care help, all of our health care needs. The government's never going to help us. The biggest help we can have is get the government as far away from our lives as possible.
Yes.
If people read this thing carefully, they will see that you actually got to have a committee, a little bureaucratic group up there deciding what treatments you get.
Are you
Can
talking
you
about a
imagine
death panel?
Oh my goodness,
Well,
it's there.
Yeah,
It
is there.
It is there.
It is there.
It is there.
And the scary thing here is when these people, and I think they've already started figuring this out. For the last 50 years, we've targeted babies. Let's look at what we call the zero population groups and this population control and population council and all these people. They've targeted babies, right? They say we have too many people in the world, so we've got to target babies. And they have wiped out 50 million babies just in America so far, right? But now what they're coming to the realization is the problem is not that we have too many babies being born, it's that we have too many people living too long. And
that aren't productive and are worthless.
And the demographics are shifting. And so they're starting to look at the demographics and say, wait a minute, birth control and abortion we went down the wrong trail, right? We should have been going after the elderly because if you look at the demographics starting, say, in 1900, if you look at the lifespan of the average American, in 1900, it was like 44.6 years or something like that. And by the end of the decade, by 2000, it was 72.8, and now it's 76 something already.
Yes, it is.
And and we're having less babies than we ever did. But the population grows. And they're saying, whoa, the problem is we've got too many people living too long.
And so what did Obama say when asked about health care for the elderly? He said, you know what? Maybe grandma should take a pill. Right. In other words, a pain pill. In other words, a lot of pain medication, and she should just check out rather than get that, kidney transplant or...
Everybody, they're criticizing, you brought up the death panel thing a minute ago. They're saying Sarah Palin and others that are talking about this are baying at the moon, nut cases and conspiracy people, all this. But they admit that they've got a thing in there that says end-of-life counseling.
End-of-life counseling.
Now,
and also
what is there to counsel about?
They made a notice. These people actually noticed that a person experiencing 80% of their real high expenses near the end of their life.
Right.
They're almost saying like, well, when grandma gets a little too
She's
old,
really not contributing.
Yeah, and her expenses for health care have gone up right at that point. We could drop that really drastically.
Well, you see, now we're talking about a fundamental change, a complete paradigm shift in the way we handle health care. The way we handle it now is, Mark, if you go in and you can afford your health care, you've got proper health care coverage, you can get whatever treatment you want. Whatever you want. Right. You want lung transplants, you want prosthetic legs, whatever you want, you can get. Now, under a government plan, single payer, in other words, taxpayer plan, it is rationed. There's never been a socialized medicine concept worldwide that hasn't been subject to rationing. There's a budget. This hospital would be given a certain amount of money, and when you go in and say, hey, look, I need a kidney transplant, I need dialysis, I need something, they're going to say, I'm sorry, Mr. Crutcher, it's not in our budget. And besides, you're 77 years old, and you're already beyond your life expectancy.
And Troy, you realize in this bill, it literally says hospitals cannot expand.
Yeah, there's no money for expansion.
No hospital is allowed to expand.
That's what I'm talking about.
Add operating
if a hospital is making money today, they can expand all they want because they're making money. They're making money off Mark and me and you. But under a government plan, it's rationed. There's a budget item. It's constricted.
Well, it's interesting that just the last few days here, the woman physician that's president of the Canadian Medical Association, which would be our equivalent of the American Medical Association, has come out and said that the Canadian system is imploding. And, you know, this is like we're on a ship that's taking on water. It's got problems. It needs help, right? But there's a ship over here that's sinking. And we're going to jump off our ship and swim over to that ship. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. And you know, when you get right down to it, I still say that what this is, if you love dealing with the post office. Now, just the other day, listen,
DMV.
Just the other day, we mailed out our newest newsletter. We printed it, right? On the back of the newsletter, it's what's called a self-mailer. You just drop it in the mail. On the back of it, at the bottom, it has a place where you put the address and so forth. Unknown to us, nobody told us this, they won't mail it that way anymore. This is the way we mailed it in January.
Wow.
It now, this block where this goes has to be at the top rather than at the bottom. That's the only change. This is costing us thousands of dollars.
It's already been printed.
It's already been printed.
Welcome to the government.
We don't have any way of knowing this.
You know, Mark,
right? And what I'm telling you is this: national health care, and it's going to be the efficiency of the post office with the compassion of the IRS at Pentagon prices. That's what we're talking about.
I used to work for the Department of Defense, and the joke among the soldiers were, don't worry, we're going into battle with helicopters and guns and ammunition and bombs made by the lowest bidder.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to farm your health care out to the lowest bidder, vote for Obamacare.
Well, you know, that's what John Glenn said. That somebody asked him one time when he was sitting on top of that Saturn V rocket, first American into space. He said, when he was sitting on top of that Saturn V rocket, let me tell you something, you had to have cojones to get them. Because if you've ever been to the Smithsonian and seen that little thing, it's not as big as this tabletop. Yeah. And it didn't even have doors. When you got in it, they had to bolt it together. They finished assembling it with you in it.
You got 5 billion pounds of gasoline underneath
and you're sitting on top, that thing, little tiny thing sitting on top of the Saturn V rocket. And they asked him what he was thinking about. When he's sitting there, he says, I'm thinking about the fact that every component in this thing was built by the lowest bidder. So that's what we're headed toward. And people better start paying attention to this because this is dangerous.
And he said it about his own grandmother when she was getting the hip replaced at 80-something. I can't quote him. I don't listen to him. But why? It was something like, why bother with this?
Why put a perfectly good hip into an 80-year-old woman?
Yeah.
You know, something like it.
So you know he means it if he's talking about the grandmother.
These people have to be stopped. And it's like Troy said a minute ago. It's not a matter. I don't even think we sit down with a table and we compromise with them. I think the deal is we sit down and say, no, we're stopped. And that's what all these people at these town hall meetings are saying. Yes. And if the Democrats and even the Republicans that are supporting this nonsense want to choose to ignore them, I think they do so at their own peril.
This is the line in the sand.
Yeah,
This is the line in the sand. We will not cross it.
Right, exactly. And people need to just stand up and say this. You've pushed us so far, like Churchill said about the British people. You can push them so far, but not an inch further. Well, this imperial Congress that we have, and that's what it is.
Right.
Make no mistake, they are elitist, and they are Marxist, and they are traitors. And they have pushed us so far, and I think it's time the American people stand up and say, that's it. We've had enough. No further. Thanks. That's it for now. Until next month, remember, Life Dynamics is not here to put up a good fight. We're here to win, because winning is how the killing stops. We'll see you in October.